Hi everyone, welcome to Observability Guru. We are in the middle of series AWS Observability with Datadog Zero to Hero series. Today we have a brand new video where we will go through Datadog Distributed Tracing. Tracing is a very important concept in observability because tracing allows us to understand what is our code doing. Distributed tracing tracks the requests as they flow through multiple services in a system, and it provides the complete end-to-end visibility of what is that particular code is doing. So what we'll do is we will go through a little bit of theoretical aspects, get to know the concept, and then we will dive into a live demo where I will enable distributed tracing for a sample application. So before we start, what are the advantages of distributed traces and why we are so interested in that when it comes to observability? So distributed tracing provides end-to-end visibility. In our journey to achieve complete observability, what we understood is that end of the day what matters is how is your code is performing. So you had to understand what is your code doing, and typically codes are having different methods and different areas, so we just want to know in and out exactly what's that particular code doing, and that's what we call end-to-end visibility, and that's what we're going to achieve part of tracing. So tracing helps us when it comes to troubleshooting, because tracing is align with root cause investigation, because generally if it is a code issue, by looking at your traces you are able to get to know what's happening, and then it will allow us to improve or monitor the performance. It will allow us to develop better alerting and ensure that we build world-class end-user experiences. So traces are pretty much for root cause investigations, and of course we can use it for other performance measures as well, but it's been renowned for the root causes. Let me move on. So let's look at what the structure of distributed traces look like. So we have I've just put a one flow where we have a application where when the users access application, it goes to a front end call and it goes to the services, and then it goes to the database as well. So you can see what happen is we have the session, and then it's have this session is particular alive or active until this request is served, and then this is again going into the service layer, and then what's happening at database. So in order to keep track of what's happening in connecting each different layers, we use something called trace context. Trace context help us to understand the context or keep the relationship or the parent-child relationship going. So this is naturally what is distributed trace, where we are able to understand in summary that particular end-to-end what's happening. So now we'll dive into the demo. So I'm at Datadog console now. So previously when we want to enable APM, we had to use some of these APM enable agent or the trace enable agents, but with newer version of Datadog, if you are looking at EC2 level, we have the Datadog agent capable of enabling traces as well. So let me go to Amazon Linux and let me select the API key I want to use, and now if you look at carefully, you can see while we are going to configure the agent in this particular server, I can enable APM. So this is very interesting, because what happens is, if I am using some of these services hosted in EC2, develop using Java, Python, JavaScript, .NET or Ruby, then this agent is automatically able to instrument and use this to enable traces. So let me select it as prod, so that we have the service name. So I'm literally not going to look at others, so I'll just copy this. Let me log into the server and then I'll run it. So this will enable Datadog agent in this particular server, and also it will ensure that parallel to that we also enable the Datadog tracing. So tracing will happen automatically now. So let me just check with the Datadog agent is running. So it's running. It will take little more time for to reflect this agent in my server. So I'll pause this video and come back when it's reflecting. Okay, so now I can see my host is getting reflected in Datadog console. So, and before that, let me just go to this particular the POC application. So it's a simple application which is having a front end, and we have the Spring Boot developed microservices running. So if I go to the location, I'll able to see the locations of hotel, and so it's invoking an API call. I can look at the rates as well, and I can also look at the hotel services. So this is kind of like, I make sure it's not work. So up to now, so we will invoke 2 services, and now that I have invoked these services, if I go back to my Datadog console, I can go here, I can start looking at the traces. So you can see now the traces are coming up, and I just enable it using Datadog agent without using any other agents or instrumentation. So once we do that, the beauty of traces is we can go into more detail. So at Datadog, where we can find this more detail is, we can look at APM, and the first thing I would suggest you do is go to the service catalog. So let me go inside the service catalog, and that will show you the services. Now that particular application which we have instrumented, so it is having couple of things. So I have a MySQL database, so we have API gateway, we have the location service, reservation service, and other services. So what I will do is, I can also go in and look at the service map. Service map. I might have to give you a little more time, and then also select prod as well. In order to reflect, let's give some more time. Let me pause the video and wait until they start appearing. Okay, so service map start appearing now, because it was kind of like a fresh installation. It took little bit of time. So you can see I have that MySQL database which is getting traffic from all of these services like location service, car service and reservation service, and you can see my API gateway and other services as well. So service maps are very important because it's just provide you all the dependencies. So I know the dependencies MySQL will have, and then even I know the dependencies of API gateway and other things. So that way it gives me more understanding of this entire ecosystem. So what we have done is we want to the APM and service map. That is how we get this, and then we can go into explore traces and try to see what's kind of happening here. So let me go here and let me look at all the traces which came from last 15 minutes. So what I'll do is you can see it's coming from discover service, my other services as well. So let me look at my location service. So here I can see all those requests which is coming from my location service. So what I can do here is I can go back and then start looking at so example here there are two the get API calls, so I can filter that, and then let me go and see what's happening here. So you can see there's this get API location call happening, and then we are and then we are looking at that the service location service. So this is the API gateway. So this is very nice because it's provide you with the color coding as well. So the purple colors are your API gateway, the request which is coming from API gateway, and this is the shell of life, like how long this has been active. So it just shows you that it's around 26.8 millisecond. And then we have this location service, and then you can see and location service, and then you can see it's about get all locations. That is that particular method. And then you can even see like what's happening, and even to that SQL query, right? So there are multiple ways we can look at a trace. So this is more of a we call it a flame graph, and if required you can go into a waterfall method as well, which again kind of like a very similar way, but you can still see where the request is coming from API gateway to your location service, and from there to the MySQL database and also the database query. And you can look at this as a span list as well, where this again gives you a different way of looking at this, and that shows like each area, the time taken and other things as well. And we can see that map. We can see that the request is coming from API gateway to location service and final to MySQL database. So if I go here, so this is pretty much the traces. So ideas that we know now that what's really happening in my code level, right? So how much time my get all location method is taking, and how much time my MySQL database queries are running as well. And if you come below, this again very interesting. You will see the high level overview, the high level details related to this particular traces, and I can correlate this particular view with what's happening at the infrastructure. I can see the infrastructure metrics, CPU, memory and other things. I can see the other standard metrics here as well, things like the heap memory and those things. And I can look at the query. So here I'm having a select query. So the time taken for this query and all the details are visible here. So in nutshell, this is typically what you are expecting when you try to enable Datadog traces. So traces will provide you a more clear view of what's happening in your entire function which is serving that end user request. So that it will show you from the topmost, and you can go down as well. So if I go back again, so just to cover a few of the things providing, so let me go back and start coming from the traces. I'll start with Explorer. I'll just untick this. So you can see, so this shows like last 15 minutes all the traces came in here, and I can filter. So we discussed like there's something called the root span, so which is the place where we are starting the trace, which is the entry point. So if I want, I can just filter all of these things from the root span and then start checking what's happening. So let me just put this back again to old span, and this time let's select the reservation service. I just want to see how that reservations calls are being made and detail around that. And then here again I can see the get reservation call. Here what I'll do is I can again go inside, and then I can start looking at the traces. So here again it will clearly show me the time is spent for the API gateway. So it says like roughly around 70% of this turnaround time was spent at API call was up and running, and then there was around 24% time spent for the reservation, and then very small percentage, 4%, for the MySQL. So this shows you what's really happening at your application. Now that you have kind of a high level idea of traces and how to enable traces, so let us go back and explore what that will provide you. Right, so let me go into Datadog Metric Explorer, and here I'm suggesting go to Metric Summary, because that is a very nice tool where you can simply, I can just filter APM, so I can look at all the metrics coming via APM. So you can see it has the request, and it has the trace, the hits. So there are around multiple the MySQL layer, and there are a lot of metrics. This is getting enabled just by enabling APM. So as you have seen, what you have done is we achieve this by simply installing the Datadog agent only, because at this time agent has the capability of doing the instrumentation and enabling traces by itself. So that's it, everyone. So that's what we want to discuss today. I'll come back with you another video in future. Take care. Bye.